So I'll be talking about Swift Mobile DevOps. So I work for Bitrise, and I'm going to use the tool for that. It's very high level. So if I wanted to build everything from scratch, 30 minutes won't be enough. We will take this as we will take Bitrise for granted, and then we'll build upon it, writing scripts and also steps. All right, so about me, my name is Atanas Chanev. I used to be in academia doing natural language parsing, some of it in Italy, in fact. And then I was a mobile engineer for many years in London. I rode the wave when mobile, just before it became mainstream. So we were charging crazy money for mobile apps back then. Not anymore. And I also implemented different continuous integration and continuous deployment pipelines using different tools, and not only Bitrise. So the problem today is that we're using Swift to write our mobile applications. We're using it for many things, including our backend. But can we also use it to build our apps? Some of us back in the days, we were releasing apps manually, we were running code tests manually, and now this is being moved into the cloud. So what do we need to run Swift for building our apps? So apparently we need some Apple hardware. We can't do it on any computer. And then it needs to be available. So for example, if I have one Mac Mini and I have two builds that I want to run, the first one has to wait for the other, so I want availability. Then the machines, virtual or bare metal, they would have to have all the Xcode tooling and other software installed and ready to use. And in the end of the day, it should be something easy for me to do, because if I'm a mobile developer, building is not really my thing, DevOps. And I also need the Swift compiler, because I just want to do things with Swift. All right, so the contents of my presentation today. I will explain about Bitrise for those of you who haven't used it already, who are not familiar with the tool. And then I will show the existing Swift integrations. And after that, I'll show you how you can write script directly in Bitrise, Swift scripts directly in Bitrise. And in the end, I will show you how I created the first Swift Bitrise step. So you can do it as well. If I can do it, you can do it. All right, so Bitrise maximizes app impact by automating, accelerating, and improving mobile engineering processes. What does it mean? It means that if you push some code every time you want to run tests, and then if you merge something to your main branch, maybe you want to release. So if you push code, that happens, you forget about it, you check in a while, you can keep coding. So this is what Bitrise is about. The team, Bitrise was founded by mobile developers because they wanted to resolve this problem. And currently we have more than 200 people across continents, Europe, the US, and also Asia. So Bitrise helps you build and operate better mobile apps faster. So Bitrise is a website. So you go on the website, you register, and then if you have an app, you will add it to Bitrise, and then Bitrise will have a project scanner that will scan your app, detect its type, and then it will insert workflows for the app. The workflows will consist of steps. Usually you will have two workflows, one primary, which is for testing, and one for deployment. So it will look something like this. For example, in this GIF, there's a cloning step. Then you do something with a script. Then you pull a cache. You install your profile, provisioning profile and certificates. Then you run some tests. You deploy so that your QA team can download your app. or view your test reports, and then you push the cache. So it's very easy, and it's very easy to start using Bitrise. Then when you're building, you want to choose between different Xcode versions and different machines. You might want to run something, you might want to use a faster machine or a more economical machine. And also, you may want to use different stacks with different versions of Xcode. Currently, we support Xcode 13.3, but then we support everything down to 11.7, I believe. And it is super easy. Like you can just select your stack, and then when you push code, your build starts on this stack. This is quite important because we can't build it on the Linux stack like the iOS code. All right, so what are the existing Swift integrations? Bitrise has more than 300 integrations, and if you can search, and if I search for Swift, this is what I can see. So we have a build step for Swift Package Manager, which is a community step, like I can see from the icon, and then I have Swift Package Manager test and a few utility steps. So I can see that there are Swift lint and another Swift lint. So these steps are doing the same things, but they were created by different people. All our steps are open source, so you can see, you can browse the source code, you can make a pull request, and yeah. All right. And then we also support Tuist. Tuist is one of the latest steps that was added by the guys who work on Tuist. It is a verified step, and it is a tool for describing your project so that you resolve merge conflicts easily. But it is much more than that, especially if you want to use the cache. So using the cache is a very fashionable thing, let's say, and the idea is very simple. If you build something, if you test something, the next time when you push code, if the code is not related to those things that you built and tested, you don't need to build and test them again. So you can just read from the cache, and if you don't need to run them, you save time. Like for example, if I run 30,000 tests for 23 minutes, then I rerun my build, and then I only need 53 seconds because Tuist verifies that I have run this before, it knows it, and it doesn't need to run it again. So you can use Tuist also for other things like dependency management, replace CocoaPods and other tools, and yeah, but the cache is the most important. And you can connect the Tuist cache with Bitrise. So Bitrise has a Bitrise cache push step, which is getting a directory that you specify, and it is pushing it to remote storage. So the next time when you run the build, it is taking it from the remote storage, it is inserting it into the virtual machine, and you don't have to build a lot of things. With Tuist, I can specify in my configuration Swift file, I can specify the directory that I want to use for the Swift cache, and then I can add the same directory here in the Bitrise step. And if you see here, this used to take 23 minutes, more than 23 minutes, and then my second build took only 50 seconds. So sounds great. The devil's in the details. So you need to have your project modularized. So you will only skip building those things that you didn't push code for. In reality, it means that you must separate your code. You split it into many parts and have a dependency graph that doesn't have many things that depend on each other. So if you do that, you can save a lot of time. Then the next thing I want to talk about is scripting. And and I didn't know that I could use Swift for scripting at Bitrise, and I wanted to explore. This. So probably the most one of the most popular steps at Bitrise, when it doesn't come to building Xcode or building Android, is the script step, because you can execute any script. So this is my script. I'm using the Swift compiler. It's there pre-installed, and then I'm checking a library. I'm checking a directory to see if some frameworks are there, because they might not be there, and then I'm also checking with the O tool, which is also pre-installed on the machine. I'm checking how my binary was linked to those frameworks. So one good thing about the script step and writing Swift is that you can enable the Swift build system integration if you're using the most recent Xcode 13.3 stack. It means that your scripts will run faster. If you're using older stacks, they will you won't be able to do that. But like it was introduced recently, and it is opt-in. So if you set this, your Swift scripts are faster. All right. So this was my first attempt into running a Swift script. This is a bash script, as you can see. So I wrote something, some commands into a hello Swift. Then I made it executable, and I ran it. Not very nice. But then I found out that I can set the tool that I wanted my script to be run with here in the Bitrise tab. So there's a text area where I input my script, and I can put in something like this. So I specify that this will be run with Swift, and then I'm using this Swift code to print a message. This looks much better. So what can I do with a Swift script? I can read environment variables. For example, I can read my protected passwords, my I don't know, any environment variables. For example, it might be a link, or it might be a username, it might be a password, it might be a token, something protected or not protected. I can make API calls. Like, for example, I can check if I can use curl to request some data from a remote server. Then I can also write to files. I can run shell commands, and I can use libraries. For example, something that is available for, we have a framework for something high level, so I can use that. And I can also install and configure any third-party tools. So I decided to try some code with async await in a script. So this will only work with the Xcode 13.3 because older versions have an issue with a missing framework, and then this code won't run. But if you're using the most recent stack, then it will run. So I'm importing the foundation framework, then I'm creating a dispatch group, and then I am making API request to this API to get a cat fact. So I'm using await here. Then the other part is boring, just deserialize what I find and check if I have a fact. If I have a fact, I print it. If I don't have, I print an error message. And then I exit with success. So given this new API, async await, it is pretty cool to be, in my opinion, to be able to run it in a script and build your app with it. What can you do? For example, you can upload your DSIM file to Apple. If your app supports bitcode, then you can't upload your DSIM you need to download it from Apple. So I can make a request, I can wait, and I can use this API. Then, this is another use case. At Bitrise, you can start builds manually, and one of the options is to configure any variables. So, for example, I can say that I want the device to be iPhone 8, for example, or iPhone or an iPad or any other version, and I can specify this as a value. I can also have this value as another variable, but there's a catch, and the catch is that I need to enable this. I need to switch this toggle, but then this variable can't be something that I have configured already in Bitrise. So it can't be something that is configured on in my settings. That's because when I send my parameters, then the tool, the module that is reading them doesn't know about my Bitrise settings. So I wanted to find a way around that, and I wanted to hack it. So I'm getting this my param variable, and I am switching this off. So I will be sending this $myparam string. And then I will have this tiny script here, and it will say, does anybody know what this is? Yeah, well, most people don't, and I didn't know, in fact, before I researched it. Well, it is taking this dollar off, and then it is fetching the myparam variable from my settings at Bitrise. Then I rewrote the same script in Swift. This I can understand. I'm importing from the foundation framework, and I'm fetching safely an environment variable, or like if I don't find it, it is nothing. And then I'm fetching safely the environment, the device environment variable. I'm dropping the first letter, removing it, and then I am setting the environment variable with the device variable. And then I print to see if I set the device variable correctly. So it is much easier to understand, even though it is more verbose, and it is in Swift. Then the next thing, I thought, yes, I can write scripts, and I can create workflows that have many scripts, but can I do something more? Can I create my own Bitrise step? So Bitrise steps, anybody can create a Bitrise step. Like they can store it on GitHub, and then they can also import it and use it directly from Bitrise. The Bitrise step can be written either in Bash, so you need to have a shell script, or in Go, in the Go programming language. However, if you're using any of those, like the Bash script or Go, you can wrap some tools that are already installed on the virtual machine. So you can write steps in Ruby, you can write steps in Python, and you can write steps in Swift. At Bitrise, there were steps written in Ruby, for example, but there wasn't a single step written in Swift. So this is what I did. I wanted something that is useful. So I checked this Wasabi Hot Storage, which is some inexpensive storage with European data centers, and it was compatible with Amazon S3. So this meant that I could use many of the tools that are available for Amazon S3, including those that are available at Bitrise. So this is a sample of how I can import my custom step in Bitrise. So you saw how we had the workflows, how we had the steps, and how everything was nice and visual. However, I also have all these visual settings. They represent they represent a configuration, which is also available in a Bitrise YAML file. So if I make changes in my workflow, if I drag and drop my steps, then I will see that my Bitrise YAML was modified. And also I can make changes in my Bitrise YAML file, and then when I go back to see my workflow, I will see that they changed. So when I open my Bitrise YAML file, I started by inserting the Bitrise Amazon S3 step here. Then I cloned it, and I used this code to make Bitrise read my step and integrate it to my workflow. So I specify the Git, I specify my branch run Swift, and then I specify my input variables, which is the access key, the secret key. Then I have my bucket name, bucket region, like on AWS, and then the file path of the file that I want to upload. So this is I forked this repository from a developer. The cat fact, I'm using it in other places as well. So this is how my step appeared in Bitrise. Yeah, so like it was nice and visual. So this is the Amazon S3 file uploader, and I know that it is mostly compatible with Wasabi Hot Storage. It is mostly because I can use the simple functions, simple features like upload a file, and then I could also use it as a proof of concept that you can write Swift steps on Bitrise. So this step is written in Ruby, and it is wrapping the AWS command line interface. So I actually looked into the code. I found that this code was executed, and by only adding the endpoint URL, which is the Wasabi's URL, and I could use the Amazon S3 file uploader with the Wasabi API. So I only needed to fork the step to add this parameter here, and then I was able to reuse the step. So how does a minimal Bitrise Swift step look like? So if you look into any of the steps, you will see many files, but in order to have a minimal step, you need at least 4 files. One of them is step YAML. This is configuring the metadata, what input parameters you want to have, what output parameters, if you want to have any help, things that will be shown visually on the Bitrise website. Then you have the step sh, which is the script that will be executed. It can be a Go file, but I decided to use the bash option. And then I wanted this to be the wrapper to my Swift code. Then I have step Swift. It may have a different name. This will be the source code of the step. And then I have Bitrise YAML. So like I didn't quite get what this was for, but it didn't work without it. So the step metadata. I copied this over from the AWS step, and this is a short version. The full version is here on this address. Then I have the title of the step, so that Bitrise knows to display Wasabi file uploader. I have a dependency, so I need the AWS command line interface, and I need to install it every time when I run this step. And then I have the some input parameters and then some output parameters as well. This is the wrapper script, step.sh. So it does it just gets the directory where I'm running this, and then I run the step like this, Swift, and then the path to this to the step Swift file. I could have changed the mode and then I could have executed this directly, but I decided to do it in this way. And then this here will exit. This is very important. It will exit with success or failure. So it depends whether my build will fail or it will succeed. So what is the anatomy of a step? So I have imports and declarations. So if you have any input parameters, you need to read them. Then, so imports and declaration is like if you want to use a foundation, for example, if you want to declare some functions, then it is the reading input parameters. Then there's input validation. Then there's the core part of the step, which is doing something like making an API call or using the command line interface of a tool. And finally, exporting the output parameters. One thing is that the importance of logging is paramount. If I just do stuff in my step, then when people are running builds, they won't be able to understand what's going on. They will see success or failure, but they won't know what happened. And it's important because when you're building your app and then your build fails, you want to know why it failed. So not only errors should be logged, but also input parameters and also the status of the step. So we need to know whether it was success or failure. And the input parameters are very important because when you're debugging and things don't work, you want to know what you passed to your step as parameters. So this is the first part of the step. So I'm importing foundation because I need the framework for reading the input parameters and some other things. And then I have a couple of functions. The first one is I want to validate whether a parameter is empty or not, and if it is empty, then I want to exit with an error, and then the wrapper will take this, it will report the error, and then the build will fail. And then this one, the second function, is about running shell commands. So I want to run the AWS command line interface, and I need to do it from within Swift. So I added this shell function. It is taking all the arguments, the command, and also the input parameters, and then it is running them. So I'm using wait until exit, so it will be running synchronously, and then it's returning the termination status. Then the code, I want to print all the configurations because I want, when I'm using Bitrise, when I want to see my build, I want to know what parameters I added. So, for example, I may configure some parameters to be environment variables, which I don't see, but when I look in the log and something fails, then I will know that this environment variable may have been it may have been the wrong variable. For example, if I pass a missing environment variable, my validation will catch it. But for example, if I think I'm building for production, but I'm building for staging instead, then I would see staging. I won't see the environment variable environment, for example. Apparently, I don't want people to see my Wasabi access key and Wasabi secret key. So as far as they're not empty, I just say that there's something in there. Now I validate. I'm using the function that I declared previously, validate not empty. So I'm validating all the parameters. And then I also have one parameter, which is a file. I want to check whether the file exists. So if the file doesn't exist, I'm printing a message and then I'm exiting. if I make it to line 60, then I know that the validation was successful. The next thing, in order for it to work, I need to export 3 environment variables outside. So like I say outside, but it's not outside. It is actually available only to my script. It is not even available from the script wrapper. So these will only be available for the while the script is running, and they will only be available in the scope of the script, not anything else. So I'm setting the Wasabi access key, but I'm using this AWS access key ID because this is what the environment expects me to set, so that the tools can work. And then I'm setting the secret access key, and then I'm also setting the default region. I'm also I'm calling the Wasabi API by using the shell function that I declared before. So I am running AWS S3 copy the file path to my bucket. Then I'm specifying whether I want the private or public access, and then I'm specifying the endpoints, what was unique for Wasabi cold storage. And finally, I'm printing whether the operation was successful or not, and I am exporting 2 output variables that I can use in other steps. For example, if I have another step that is running after my step, and I want to use the link where my file was uploaded, then I need to export. This environment variable. I need to use it by utilizing this tool envman, which is specific for Bitrise. So when I use that, then any environment variables will be available to the steps that come after my step. So they won't even be available for my step, but they will be available for the steps after my step. So I'm exporting 2 of those. One of them is the URL where my file was uploaded, and then I'm also exporting the step status. I need to export the status because I may want to optionally run a step depending on whether my step was successful or not. If it wasn't successful, then, for example, I wouldn't want to use this file for something. Finally, I'm exiting here with the outcome, which is like the outcome I set here. And it is also very important because this outcome will be passed to the shell wrapper. So success, my file was uploaded. I'm happy. So I wanted to see my step log. So this Git, this is what I configured. This is the Git of my step. It is my branch, which was truncated, and then I have some metadata here. I have this info, which is step dependency AWS was installed, so I know that the dependency was installed successfully. Then I have the file path here for the file that I wanted to upload. I have the apps log. All the messaging that I put in the script are here. There's only one thing that I don't understand. This upload built whatever my file to S3 Amazon. I have no idea how this thing appeared here. I think Bitrise may be using some of the tags I used to for my step, and then it is adding this to the step. But I didn't add that. It's probably something from the Amazon S3. And then this is my whole log. So this is it has the different steps, and the most important thing, it's green. So it was successful. So how did I implement this? So I was using standard agile process. on Bitrise. So it would have been some sort of a TDD, BDD, because I would start with a failing build, and then I will add something in the script, and then I will make a run Bitrise, then I will continue until my step was ready. After each change, I always verify it on Bitrise, so that I can proceed a small iteration and have things ready without too much hassle. But there were a few gotchas. The first one is that I actually didn't know that the script step at Bitrise can run Swift, let's say, natively. Even though the documentation says that you can use any tool like Ruby, Python, I didn't figure out that I could just write Swift and then write my Swift script in the text area, and then Bitrise will read it and execute it correctly. Then I discussed this with my colleague, and they told me, well, wouldn't it be nice if instead of the text area we had something that would be highlighting our Swift code? So yes, that would be amazing. The second gotcha, like, I got too excited about being able to run Swift in the script step, and I was kind of disappointed that I had to use Bash, a Bash wrapper for my Swift code for the step. So as a reminder, the native way to write your steps is either Bash or Go, but with a wrapper you can use other tools as well. And probably the most painful thing was debugging the command line interface. So when I was running the shell function, when I was running the AWS, I had a few unsuccessful attempts, and then when I was running Bitrise, I couldn't see anything. So like I couldn't see the error. I had to print the shell command and then use a script step and verify what the problem was. So this was a real pain. Probably there is a way to do it with a better way to do it with high-level Swift API, but like it was a gotcha. So that's we made it to conclusion. So what did we learn today? We learned how to write Swift scripts on Bitrise, how to create and use Swift steps on Bitrise, and also a little bit more about Bitrise as a system. So Bitrise helps you build and operate better mobile apps faster. That's everything.